NBA, my podcast. This is episode number 2. Today on the agenda, we've got Jimmy Freakin Butler, Jimmy Buckets, Jim Butler, as I like to call him. We'll talk Lakers in Denver. 0-2. My Lake show is down 0-2. We'll talk Heat Seas. Heat surprisingly up 2-0 on the road, which I don't know that I've seen. I don't think I've seen that too often, if ever. Excuse me. I don't know if I've seen that too often, if ever, where a road team in a conference finals wins 2 games. This is very surprising. We'll talk Doc Rivers. He was let go by the Sixers after 3 years. So I've got some opinions on Doc and his time in L.A. and in Boston. It looks like Doc would have been better off just staying put in Boston and doing an Eric Spoelstra, riding up and down with the team. But these players and coaches front run so much that they end up, worse off than if they would have just committed. And then who's better right now? We'll talk Jaylen Brown versus Devon Booker. All right, so that's the show. Let's get into it. Jimmy Butler. I said last week, go back and listen to my show last week. What did I tell you guys? Jim Butler is better than Kawhi Leonard. He's better than Paul George. Right? Jimmy Butler is one of the, if not the best. Let's say I still put Tatum and KD ahead of him. I'd probably still put Braun ahead of him, to be honest. But Jimmy Butler is easily a top 5 small forward. And he and Braun are probably a tie at this point, just due to age. And then given the playoff performance, you got to catapult him. You got to catapult him to the top at this time. He's better than KD. He's better than, performing better than Braun. The thing I like about Jimmy, and I like this about most players, because this is what I like about these type of players, is what I'm trying to say, because I was this type of player. Jimmy wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't a high draft pick. He wasn't a stud at Marquette. He was on the bench for Chicago for the first couple years, and he just kept at it. So I love that type of player that just finds a way, and he's doing it. And he reminds me, watching him play, of an old school, and I'm saying old school, 90s, and I grew up in the 90s, but it's old school now. An old school big guard or big wing, like Drexler, Sprewell, Eddie Jones, and that he doesn't take a lot of three-point shots. Jimmy does not shoot a bunch of three-point shots, and that is very unique for wing players in today's game. For example, in the New York series, in 5 games, Jimmy took 3, 6, 9 threes. Jimmy was 1 for 9 on threes in the New York series. Yet he was the best player on the floor, and that's 1.8 3-point shots per game. Contrast that with Jaylen Brown in the Sixers series. And Jaylen shoots it at a better clip than Jimmy, but 10, 14, 22, 28, 31, 37. He took 37, and he averaged 5.3. So Jaylen Brown averaged 5.3 three-pointers per game in his last series, and Jimmy averaged 1.8. Like I said, he reminds me of Drexler. For you guys who are out there don't know Clyde Drexler, he was one of the best 2 guards of all time. Played out in Portland. Wasn't much of a jump shooter, but was a heck of a 2-guard. Big 2-guard, legitimate big 2-guard, 6'7", super athletic, making plays at the rim, making plays in mid-range. Sprewell, very much the same way. Sprewell is probably a better one-on-one player than Clyde, but Sprewell didn't take a bunch of threes. And then Eduardo Jones, one of my favorite 2 guards, actually. I loved him at Temple. And I loved him in L.A. Coached before Kobe got there, and then he went out to Heat. But Eddie was the same way. So good for Jimmy. I love seeing it. I love seeing these type of guys succeed. Jimmy seems like a quality dude. And I didn't know he was 33 years old. I mean, Jimmy's in this, and this is the back half of his prime right now. Probably, he's probably out of his prime, to be honest, and he's still doing this. So this is very, very impressive. I'm happy to see him doing this. The way Jimmy's playing, I do think Miami can win the chip. I do. I think they could beat. I definitely think they can beat Denver. I'm not sold that Denver is this monster. I mean, I see one really good center and then a bunch of other guys kind of playing off of him, and I don't know that that's championship caliber play. So we'll see. I definitely know Denver doesn't have anybody on their roster who can match up with Jimmy, and they have no rim protection. Aaron Gordon would get torched. He's a step and a half too slow for Jimmy. Jokic offers no rim protection for Jimmy. The Heat aren't going to be scared. The Heat are going to be well prepared. So I do think that if Jimmy stays healthy and the team stays healthy, that they could win the championship. So we'll see. All right, we'll talk Lakers versus Denver. I'm a little disappointed. I'm actually a lot disappointed in my Lakers. A couple things. One, LeBron is 38. I said that last week, but he's also 1 for I think it's at 19 or 1 for 9 from 3. Which is not good. He probably needs to stop doing that. Although I said it last week, AD versus Joker was going to be the series, and Joker is just wiping the floor with AD, right? Like I said, LeBron is 38. He's done his part just being here and being the second best player and one of the best players on the floor at 38. Should be more than enough for AD to dominate. AD is 30 years old. He just turned 30 3 months ago. He should be dominating the way Joker's dominating. And the truth is, Joker's making plays for himself. He's making plays for his teammate. He's putting downward pressure on the Lakers defense. I mean, after game 1, the Lakers at the half of game 1, the Lakers put Rui, a 6'8" guy, on Joker. So that, to me, if I'm AD, you got to have pride in your defense, and I just don't think he has any pride. I don't see how you go into the locker room as AD, who's supposed to be their top defensive player, and Joker is torching you guys, and you're like, yeah, let's put Rui on him. I'd be like, no, man, I'm not going to do anything else but spend 100% of my energy stopping this dude, because if I can stop him, we can win the game. But, AD hasn't been. I guess he just doesn't have that in him, man. I think AD still has a 2018 view of himself. I think he views himself in 23 like people viewed him in 2018. And to be honest, Joker, Giannis, and Embiid have collectively taken that man. Joker's got 2 MVPs, Giannis has 2, Embiid has 1. During that time, it probably matches up. I'm sure there's one MVP in there I'm missing, but I would bet that matches up pretty darn well with the last 5 or 6 years, right? Like, they took that mantle that AD was supposed to dominate, at 25 for the next 8 to 10 years, and they kind of just slid in there and took that. And none of those guys, Embiid was probably the most celebrated coming out of Kansas. Giannis, nobody knew about that guy, and Joker, definitely nobody knew about him. So, again, I got to tip my hat to Joker and Giannis, and I'm disappointed in AD. I really am. I think he has a different view of himself as a player and a legacy than what we have of him, right? He's got one bubble championship. And I don't value that higher than I value Giannis's championship. And if Joker wins this year, I don't value it higher than I'll value his. Obviously, LeBron's got real championships. But to be honest, LeBron's got two. He's got that strike championship and he's got a bubble chip. So, Michael Jordan won 6 real championships. Kobe won 5 real championships, 5 real seasons, and 5 real playoffs. And to be straight up and down, that does matter. So I saw some footage. This is right a couple hours before Game 3 for Lakers in Denver. And I saw some footage about LeBron gets to the arena early and he's getting up shots early. And this is like the 3rd or 4th time he's done that this playoffs. And it hasn't amounted really to a hill of beans. I'm not interested in guys getting to the arena early at this point. I'm interested in guys winning games. So you can make as many shots as you want in your pregame warmups. I could care less. You guys need to figure out a way to beat Denver and figure out a way for that template to scale. So you can win in 4, and you can win in Game 5, and you can win in Game 6. So I am enough of a LeBron stan to think that they still have a chance. Obviously, they got to get this one tonight. They got to get the one Monday night, and then they can lose Game 5. They got to win Game 6, and then they got to get it to a Game 7. I think the only way the Lakers win is to get it to Game 7, and then Jokic and Murray will crack under the pressure. And maybe they don't. Maybe Jokic and Murray ascend, like Steph and others have ascended when that moment came to win Game 7. They step into it, but we'll see. But I think that's the only way the Lakers. I think that's the only way the Lakers can win. So they got to get it tonight. They got to get another one. They go back to Denver. That's a toss. If they can win it, great. But if not, they got to win Game 6, and then they got to get it to a Game 7 where LeBron is comfortable, and anything can happen. So, but yeah, disappointed. In summary, disappointed in the Lakers. I thought they could at least get a split. I've been disappointed in AD and his lack of urgency and lack of tenacity to meet Joker, one-on-one. I was watching Troy, the movie Troy. I think it's from 2004, when, and what was Eric Bana's character's name? I forget Eric Bana's character's name, but it was the fight between Eric Bana's character and Achilles, Hector. Hector was his name. He was the Crown Prince of Troy. And if you guys remember, if you haven't seen the movie, watch it. It's a fantastic movie. But Hector killed Achilles, who was Brad Pitt's character's nephew. And Achilles came to the gates and called him out. And they had a mano-a-mano battle, and it was cold. Achilles ended up killing Hector. But Hector went out there. He went heads up, one-on-one, mano-a-mano with Achilles. And Achilles he was like mythical figure, like he was, it's somewhat of a superhero. Hector was just a normal guy, but Hector wasn't scared. He went out there and he almost got it done. Ended up losing. But my point is, I would like to see a little bit of that from AD. I would like to see that Jordan, Kobe-like. No. I know there's 8 other guys out here, but I want you, right? And I want everybody watching this thing and everybody commenting on this thing to know I'm better than you, and I don't want there to be a competition. And to be fair to Joker, he's the one that's been doing that. He's the one that's dominating AD, and it's impressive. So, all right, Heat, Celtics. Where is Jaylen, quote, I deserve all NBA, unquote, Brown? He has been non-existent in this series, and it has been it's been embarrassing. I'm a big Jaylen Brown homer, man. He's my guy. I like him, but I'm going to do this podcast. I got to be fair. He is 2 for 13 from 3 in 2 games against Miami at home. He's 2 for 13 from 3. I'll say that a third time. He's 2 for 13 from 3. He's shooting 15% from 3 at home. For any of you guys who ever played, you know that home, you always shoot better because those are your rims. You shoot on those rims, you practice on those rims, you practice on that court, you practice in that space, and you just have a greater familiarity, which typically tends to lead to more shots made over time, and he's 2 for 15. I wonder if that has anything to do with Caleb Martin and Jimmy. And my answer is yes, it does. Those guys are getting after Tatum and Brown, and Brown has not met the challenge. He had 22 points and 21 shots, which is not good at all, in 39 minutes in game 1, and he had 16 points on 23 shots in game 2. He shot 23 times and only scored 16 points. That's not acceptable. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists. That's not an acceptable stat line for an all-NBA performer in a conference finals ever. So he's got to get going, and he's got to get going from the jump in game 3, or else this is it. I mean, obviously, if they don't win game 3, this is it. So I was talking to my brother the other day, and he mentioned something, that Miami is a team, and they are, right? When you watch them, they're a team, and they're a real organization. They don't have a flavor of the month type of thing. I mean, Spo has been there for 13 years as the head coach. He's been with the organization since 1997. That stability is showing up big time. And that investment in the stability is showing up big time. And it's such a contrast to these organizations with Phoenix Suns or the Sixers. I mean, a coach is there for 2 or 3 years. He has some success, but not the championship success that you want, and then you fire him and have to start all over again. And I think I got to tip my hat to Pat Riley, and I think it's Mickey Arison who's the owner of the Heat. They've done it. They understand. Mickey understands business, and I think Pat understands basketball. And they found their guy early, and they've empowered him, and it's paying off for them, right? I mean, where they're at now, I think the Celtics can still come back. I hope the Celtics can come back and win. Like I said, I'm a big Jaylen Brown fan, so I'd like to see him get a championship. But where it is now, it looks like the Heat, are going to win this thing. So we'll see. But kudos to the Heat, man. I don't know why other owners who understand business and who understand the benefits that stability can bring to a business are so quick to fire a coach after 2 to 3 years, right? Get the guy right up front, and then give him the time to develop. Here's a quick rundown of Spoelstra since 2008-2009. He lost in the first round. He lost in the NBA Finals. They won a chip. They lost in the NBA Finals. They missed the playoffs. They lost in the conference semifinals in 2016. They missed the playoffs in 2017. They lost in the first round in 2018. Missed the playoffs in 2019. They lost in the NBA Finals. That was the bubble. They lost in the first round the next year, and they lost in the conference finals last year. So in 13 years, Eric Spoelstra's missed the playoffs 3 times. They lost in the first round 4 times. They made the finals 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. They made the finals 5 times, and they made the conference finals once. They lost in the conference finals once and lost in the conference. I mean, that's a heck of a record for 13 years. That's a heck of a record, and it lets him develop. They've let Spoelstra develop. He was not this good when he started. He went through growing pains, and kudos to Pat Riley and Mickey for sticking with them and letting him get to a seasoned veteran coach who's kind of seen it all, and then you can, and the organization can reap those benefits. Miami is a team and a real organization, so shout out to them, right? Back to the games. So neither Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown had a field goal in the fourth quarter. That's embarrassing. Like I said it last week, all these guys are, they're quick to throw up Kobe or MJ, but I mean, there's no way Kobe would go, field goal, not score a field goal in a fourth quarter of an important conference finals game. That's just not going to happen. So, I mean, can they come back? Can the C's come back? Yeah, they got to win game 3. They got to win game 4. They have to win they got to win 3 in a row at least, right? and then they can get it to a Game 7, and, they'll be back at home. And, excuse me, Jaylen and Jason played well at home in Game 7. They're not unlike Joker and Murray. They've been in Game 7s. Brown and Tatum have been in Game 7, so sure. But they got to get to work, and they got to get to work on the road, and they got to get to work against Jimmy Butler, who is, basically playing like Superman right now. So that's going to be tough. And the Heat, again, are a team. They're not phased. They go down 10. They don't scramble. They don't fret. They don't worry. They just stick after it. So, I mean, if you're talking about a team in team basketball, that's the Miami Heat. That's the Miami Heat. So, why in the world, if I'm Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown at 25 or 26 with all of my athletic powers on 100%, why in the world is Grant Williams, a slow, undersized, probably slightly overweight, 6'4", power forward, being asked to guard Jimmy Butler? And then, trying to bring faux energy. And I love Grant, but, trying to do the talking and all, that's not going to help. You need guys who can sit down and get up in Jimmy's space, challenge his shot, stay on top of him, move their feet. I mean, you need athletes that can get after Jimmy Butler. Grant Williams coming with a bunch of talk and physicality is not going to phase Jimmy. He's 33 years old. He's been up against LeBron. He's been up against Wade. He's played against Kobe. I mean, that's not the move. And to be honest, if I'm Jaylen Brown, who was the better of the defender between him and Tatum, I'm taking that challenge. It's, again, like AD. I'm not coming into the locker room and watching a coach put up on the board, Grant, you got Jimmy Butler tonight. Heck no. Coach, I got Jimmy. Don't worry about my offense. I got Jimmy, right? I'm going to make everything tough for him, 94 feet. I'm going to be up in his space. I'm going to sit down on him. I'm going to be on top of his jump shot everywhere he is. I'm following him to the bench. I'm following him from the scores table. I'm going to be in his grill. And the fact that that didn't happen and Grant Williams is on Jimmy, again, I'm a little disappointed in Jaylen Brown. Kobe was a two-way player, right? Kobe took the challenge of Reggie Miller, Rip Hamilton, who was a stud in his prime with the Pistons during that series, Ray Allen in Boston, who was still playing at a high level. Paul Pierce, Kobe was on Paul Pierce, especially when Artest would leave. Kobe would switch over to Pierce, who was still in his prime. And these are these are our championship. These are the NBA finals. Kobe wanted the matchup, and he took the responsibility of being the lead scorer and being the lead wing defender. We know Mike had Pip with him, and Kobe had Artest. I know you'll say, well, Artest was there. Artest was a heck of a wing defender, but Kobe still took the challenge. Mike still took the challenge of guarding Clyde Drexler, of guarding Reggie Miller, of guarding Dan Marley, of guarding Joe Dumars. These are championships. These are conference finals against the Pistons, against the Pacers. Mike took the responsibility of scoring 30 and then guarding Reggie. And Reggie ran a lot. So I struggle with, these guys. I mean, Grant Williams, bless his heart, he's 3 inches shorter than Jimmy. He's not athletic. He doesn't play above the rim. He's not particularly quick. Like I said, he's a little overweight. Jimmy was probably like, are you serious? I'm getting ready to torch this dude. I think Jimmy scored 6 straight on Grant down the stretch. And it was like, yeah, what do you expect? Jimmy's not, that can't be your solution, Joey Mazzulla. And then I looked on the Celtics boards this morning, and there were people talking about firing Joe Mazzulla. And I just go back to my point I just made with the Miami Heat, right? If you're the Boston Celtics, why would you fire Joe Mazzulla? You should be saying, he's going to be our long-term solution here. He's going to be our guy. We're going to build a system that empowers Joe and lets the players know that Joe is the coach. And the owner and the GM will work with Joe around what the system will be. and then that will be Boston Celtics basketball. But somebody online was like, they need to fire Joe and get Nick Nurse. First of all, I don't know what the fascination is with all the Reddit nephews about Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is not a heck of a coach. He had prime Kawhi Leonard. When Kawhi left, the Toronto Raptors went downhill. You still had talent there. You had Anunoby, you had Siakam, you had Freddie. What's Fred's last name? I forget Fred's last name, but you guys know the point guard. They had him on the team, and Toronto still couldn't get it done. Toronto hasn't made the playoffs, and they still couldn't get it done. So I'm not this big Nick Nurse is such a good. I mean, people online were like, Nick Nurse, Popovich, Spoelstra, the best cut. Like, get out of here. There's no way Nick Nurse belongs in the same conversation with Spoelstra. And to be honest, Spoelstra doesn't belong in the same conversation with Popovich. Spoelstra and Kerr, I feel like, are about the same. Pop is in his own league. And Nick Nurse has not shown me enough to say he's, they want him in Philly, or they want him in they want him in Philly, or they want him in Boston if Boston loses this. So I'm not big. Here's what Nick Nurse has done, right? He won the NBA championship with Kawhi. The next year they lost in the conference semis. They missed the playoffs, and they lost in first round. So in 5 years, he's missed the playoffs twice, and in 13 years, Eric Spoelstra missed the playoffs 3 times. So I'm not a big Nick Nurse fan. I would stay with Joe Mazzulla. He seems to be a good coach. He's learning, but you got to let him learn if you're going to reap some benefits of having a coach. So. You have to let him learn if you're going to reap the benefits of having a good coach, right? And he's only 34, so I would give him some time, and I would invest in some time in him, and I would bet. I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are 25, so if they decide to stick together, they got at least another 7 years. In there, God willing, they stay healthy. They got at least another 7 years. So I could easily see them winning 2 or 3 championships if you let Joe Mazzulla develop. But if you do this, we're going to pull somebody in and put Nick Nurse in here, and he's going to bring his own staff, and they're going to have a new system. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I guarantee you aren't going to like that, because this will be their 3rd coach in 3 years, and it's just actually it'll be their counting Brad. This would be their 4th coach in 5 years, right? 4 years. M.A., Brad, Joe, and then if you brought in Nurse, that'd be 4 years, or brought in Doc or whoever. So, all right, so that's my Heat C's. In summary, I do think the C's they got to get it to 7, basically. I don't know how they win 2 in Miami. Maybe they do it. I don't know how they do it, but, I feel like this is in favor of the Heat at the moment, but we'll see. All right, on to Doc. He's not as bad as people make him out to be, but he's not as good as people think he is, right? Doc has had enough time now with enough good players that you got to kind of start putting a lot of this on him. I mean, he had CP3 and Blake both at the height of their powers. Nothing. He had Kawhi and PG, again, at the height of their powers. Nothing. And then he gets, an overweight Jim Harden, but, a relatively healthy Joel Embiid. And they go up 3-2. That was the thing, I think, that crushed Doc, is that they were up 3-2 with Game 6 at home, and they couldn't get it done. And then they just took a big dump in the bed for Game 7. And so a lot of that does have to do with Doc. So if I was an owner, I probably Doc wouldn't be a guy that was high on my Rolodex, just because I would have seen enough by now, again, how many bites at the great player apple do you need? He had CP3 and Blake when Doc was there, those were two top 10 NBA players. I know Blake and CP3 are washed now, but when he had them, they were two top 10 NBA players, and they did nothing. When he had PG and Kawhi, again, two top 10 NBA players, they did nothing. And Jim Harden is not top 10, but he's still pretty good. And Joel is MVP, obviously. He's top 5. And they did nothing. And they had it. They were up 3-2. You got to motivate those guys. You got to make the right moves at the beginning of the game. It's like an opening of a chess game when you got a closeout game. And you got to make the right moves, and Doc didn't. And then they went back to Boston, and they tanked it. So, I can't be too mad at the Sixers for saying we'll move on, because Doc is experienced, right? It's a little different than what they did in Miami when they got a young coach back in 08-09, and the ownership decided to grow with the young coach. Doc is experienced. It's fair to say it's fair that the Sixers management brought him in not to grow, but to win now, and he's failed to do that. So, I would like to see the NBA give younger coaches a shot, to find younger coaches like M.A., right? Nobody was really talking about him. And then the Celtics gave him a chance. He had kind of grown up in the Spurs organization. And then M.A. is a heck of a coach. A lot of the nephews on Reddit don't like to give him his props. I wonder why that is. Like, they love Nick Nurse, but they're like, M.A.'s not that good of a coach. And I'm like, M.A. is probably 10 times the coach Nick Nurse is. And I think M.A. is the right hire for Houston, and I think in 3 years we're going to be talking about Houston in the conference finals, because they got some young talent there. So, and I think he's going to do well with that young talent. All right, I'm going to close it out here. Who's better right now, Jaylen Brown or Devon Booker? This is a tough question. This is a very tough question. Devon Booker is a elite scorer. He doesn't really play defense, but he's definitely an elite scorer. You can't take that from him. Who had the better season this year? So Dev Booker, 28 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 50% from field goal, 50% field goal rate. He's 26. What did Jaylen Brown do? Jaylen Brown was 26.6 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 49% from the field goal percentage. They're both 26. I'm gonna go with Jaylen Brown, only because Jaylen Brown does get after you, has a reputation of getting after you defensively. So, the numbers are, 27.8, 26.6. That's 1.2 difference. More rebounds, more assists. I'd like to see Jaylen Brown get his assist numbers up, but I got to go with Jaylen just because I think what he can do for you defensively outshines what Booker does from a scoring perspective. So, all right, that's my show. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys are liking it, listening. Hit the subscribe button. I think that's what I'm supposed to say here. If you're listening, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my pod. All right.